views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the individuals participating in the show. All persons described or mentioned in the podcast should be considered innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. This podcast contains subject matter such as violence and graphic descriptions along with adult language, which may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Imagine you're one of the most famous people in the entire world. Though you are tired of fame, you don't know what to do about it. Or, just as your fame is rising, you meet a tragic end, and people do not want to stop the gravy train. What is easier to achieve? Faking your death? Or dying and everyone else faking your life? Tonight, we explore those possibilities. You're listening to the Mysterious Brews podcast, and tonight we bring you the case of Elvis didn't die, but Paul McCartney did.
Welcome to a deep, dark, dank, moist basement somewhere in the bowels of Georgia. Well, I know that Tennessee's game was not a squeaker, Coach, but Georgia had a squeaker, so we're going old school, and we're going to have one tonight.
Hey, man. Mizzou's no joke. I'm pretty sure they're going to beat Tennessee.
I don't know. I think Tennessee's run game will stop them. But they were what I didn't understand. But this is typical, and this is what nobody understands except like before the past 2 years, we shared the same woes when it came to certain games. It was like I was watching the Georgia of old. They put up 30 points, and they still could have seriously lost. And I'm like, how does that happen? I know that Georgia's depleted on defense, and I know that they graduated a shit ton of people to the NFL, and it's eventually that stuff's going to run dry. But damn it, at the passes that them son of a bitches was catching.
Let me tell you something. I'm going to give all our listeners into a little bit of insight on my small town bullshit with a certain player from Georgia. The high school that I currently work at, a young man that is one of the star receivers from Georgia named Lad McConkey was, let's just say, a lifelong Tennessee fan. His grandfather, who happens to be one of the richest men in Georgia, happened to graduate from the University of Tennessee. Could have been a multi-million-dollar donor to the University of Tennessee had his grandson been recruited by Tennessee. But the previous coach at Tennessee said, no, he's not a D1. He's not a D1 player.
Didn't give him a sniff.
They didn't sniff him. They didn't look at him. They didn't offer him anything. Nothing. But Kirby Smart, all Kirby Smart did was come to that high school and watch a basketball game, and just to see how that young man's character was during the basketball game, saw enough in his character to offer him a scholarship to the University of Georgia, and now that son of a gun's going to go to the NFL and be a fantastic wide receiver, all the while Tennessee's got their thumb up their butt at 6-2. Lad McConkey would definitely make a difference on the Tennessee offense, especially the one they're running now.
Yeah, he would.
But no.
His back injury tweaked his back. There was some vicious rumors going around that he may have rehabbed with some things that are not allowed on the NCAA level, and so that may have prolonged his absence, which, hey, we both have said there's worse things out there to do.
I promise you, that kid, no way. that kid comes from good stock. He's got a good dad. He's got a good mom. He's got a good family. He would not, I guarantee he would not screw around with stuff he's not supposed to.
Well, no, that's when I said it was a vicious rumor. Now, I will say this. If it's one of those nagging injuries where the doctors are like, look, dude, there's nothing there, but you're like, no, there's something there. It's tender, or if I step the wrong way, it's tender. And I saw a press conference where Kirby kind of tried to explain that to people. They're like, technically it's up to him. When he feels ready, he can go. So, but anyway, that's enough of the sports talk, Bruce. Let's get into, we had some traction. We got a new, where's it going? There it is. All right. So our lovely Patreonists, we have now, I think we shouted her out, but Miss Lacey Perkins, D. Lana, Tanya D., Kirsten Fingerly, Natasha Dennis, Jamie Ankers, and Chrissy. All new patrons. So we have, if you are a $10 tier and you're listening to this, check your email. We are trying to show our appreciation as we get ready for a t-shirt run, but I am not about to sit on 100 t-shirts. So I'm trying to get a head count. If you have not ordered your Mysterious Blues hoodie for this colder weather that's coming, you need to get on that. You need to go to Shopify. That's on our social media pages. Get you one of them our sweaties. Or I'm sorry, sweaters, hoodies, whatever you want to call it. All right, so Coachum, we decided to take a left turn and actually do a conspiracy.
2 conspiracies.
And we have been
two of the most famous music conspiracies ever.
That is true. Well, yeah, it's up there with the other one that I'm thinking of. The only one we could have done a true trifecta and tried to tackle Tupac's Alive, but
I don't know. That's a good one too. We could have. Well, you can't. I mean, seriously, I don't know. That's a good one though. I'm not gonna lie. But the
he's still alive. He's still alive, and the reason he's still alive is because he couldn't put up with Jada Pinkett's shit. He
was so tired of Jada Pinkett that he fucking fucked off to Cuba forever.
That's
just
right.
to avoid that shit.
And he's sitting down there smoking fatties with Fidel, or brother of Fidel.
Well, now he was there long enough to be with Fidel.
Long enough to see what Will Smith's going through. But anyway, go ahead. I apologize for cutting you off.
All I'm saying is, like, if that bitch listens to this fucking podcast, I welcome her lawsuit, because come on, man. Turns out she left Will Smith like 8 years ago or some shit like that, and he been like pretending, and then her little attitude got him to smack Chris Rock. And I'll be honest with you, if I'm Chris Rock, I don't give a damn. In a true fist fight, Chris Rock could never beat up Will Smith. But as I've said, in one particular situation where I said a few things to a black belt there was a situation with a black belt that went a little too far, and I said some things that I shouldn't have, and I told him, I was like, look, if you're going to whip my ass, you're going to have to come to me to do it. But I'm going to, like, you got to make that drive, but if you make that drive, it is what it is. Sometimes you just have to take an ass whooping.
That's right.
You can't let that slap slide.
No.
Not at all.
Nope.
So anyway, Jada Pinkett, go to hell. Fuck you. Sue me. Sue me. My name is Arlo.
Givens with a G.
Yeah, Arlo Givens with a G.
All right, so we have been, I would not say it's requested. We've basically been told that we are doing the Titanic Olympia conspiracy.
Who told us? Who voluntold us?
Voluntold us is Cody from just down there in Vidalia, Georgia, and I will tell you off air why. He has put his money where his mouth's at. So I told him, if that's the case, we are not proud. We will do it.
Well, I'm saying I believe it. I believe it. I believe it's true. So, however, the two we're covering tonight, I think one of them's true and one of them's bullshit. Spoiler alert.
Oh, well, there you go. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence of both of them, but we'll see how that plays out.
Well, I will admit, the only reason why I think one of them's bullshit is because I think it's just so hard to pull it off. I think there's too many people involved to make it work.
I got you.
And
well, we're going to start with the king.
Though there's some compelling evidence.
There he is.
Don't get me wrong.
It's been all over the TikTok. So we're going to start off with Elvis the King. Elvis died, allegedly, on August 16th, 1977. It stunned the music industry, breaking the hearts of millions of fans around the world. We were told as fans that he died of a heart attack inside his Graceland mansion. And despite a clear statement regarding a cause of death from doctors and the coroner that the 42-year-old singer and movie star had indeed died, speculation grew among fans. Many disbelievers were adamant that the king himself faked his own death to go into hiding. And believe it or not, many believe that Elvis is still alive today.
It'd be hard for him to be still alive.
True.
Not impossible. But wow.
In 1989, 3 Las Vegas Elvis enthusiasts created the Elvis Sighting Society to monitor apparent locations where Elvis had allegedly been spotted. Some people even claimed he appeared as an extra in the 1990s blockbuster movie, Home Alone. And I will say, people have blown up that picture and done it side by side. It is very compelling. But one of the wildest theories is that Elvis had to fake his own death because he had ties with the mafia. Not the cornbread mafia, because we all know they were just growing pot.
Well, the Home Alone thing I have seen that has actually been debunked. They found the extra, supposedly, as I do my quotation marks on a radio podcast.
What about the conspiracy that the babushka lady was a Rothschild? Have you seen that one?
I have not, but that would make perfect fucking sense to me.
Dude,
everybody knows them some bitches are evil.
Yes, and they the theory that I saw, if I can find that video again, I'll send it to you. But if y'all are out there in podcast land and on the TikToker, see if you can find it. You can share it to us, and then I'll share it to him. But it's cold, dude. If it's true, it's cold as ice. It's why she didn't flinch. But anyway, so the author of the
No. When you say connection to the mafia, are you going to allude to the fact that before his death, he became a special agent of the Drug Enforcement Agency? No, it wasn't the DEA at that point. I can't remember exactly.
It was still just the FBI, I think. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It
was the drug something.
Well, no, it was the drug. It was the
drug.
Okay,
something.
I'm sorry. It was the Drug Enforcement Agency, soon to be. The author of the 1988 best-selling book, Is Elvis Alive? Gail Brewer Giorgio stated that she reviewed thousands of FBI documents, coming to the conclusion that Elvis was an American hero who needed to go into witness protection. She was convinced he did not die on August 16th. After the FBI enlisted Elvis as an undercover agent in 1976 to help the agency infiltrate a criminal organization called the Fraternity, which was made up of a dozen or more racketeers. Brewer believes Elvis volunteered due to his love of America and respect for the FBI. The author believed the agency approached Elvis after a member of the Fraternity had apparent dealing with Elvis over the sale of an airplane he bought. But when Elvis was found to be a mole, he was put into the witness protection program. Of course, the FBI has never commented on this claim that Brewer described in the book. there's actually no mention of Presley helping the FBI, even in the 760 files the agency released that pertain to Elvis between 1956 and 1980. Although the FBI never investigated Elvis, there was a folder in his name created after he had been a target of several extortion attempts the FBI probed. I hate to say...
Okay, hold on. Just to chime in, because I took the time to research it. He did not receive a badge for the DEA. At the time, it was called the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs.
Bureau of Narcotics, BNDD. The BNDD doesn't ring like the DEA.
No, it doesn't. Not at all. So there you go. Sorry.
Well, and they had to
without me.
They had to get into the alphabet soup. You know, every other alphabet agency has 3 letters.
That's what I'm saying.
Come on, you can't go BNDD.
You can't do it.
That's why it never took off. What I was going to say was they didn't investigate him my ass because y'all know Hoover had a file on everybody. Whether that file was 1 page or 100 pages, there was a file on Elvis. Now, several Elvis fans have tried to debunk this theory, stating that the files show a lack of evidence suggesting that Elvis's death is fake. Patrick Lacey, author of Elvis Decoded, stated the files are available and all evidence points to death within the files. This in regard to chemical evidence, eyewitness reports, and history, of course. According to Lacey, to have him fake his own death, the singer would have required the services and silence of literally hundreds, if not thousands of people over the years. So we get into some of the, I guess, markers that he's alive or theories or evidence. I don't know, however you want to look at it. The biggest one, and I've always heard this when I was growing up as a kid, he was alive because they misspelled his name on his gravestone.
That was one of my main things too, but in my research, I saw that the reason his name was spelled with 1 A, Aaron with 1 A when he was born, was his parents weren't very good spellers. And then the fact that he himself a little more educated, his parents a little more educated, he asked his parents to respect his wishes and refer to him as Double A Aaron.
Or, as everyone else says it, AA Ron.
AA Ron, yeah. You done messed up, AA Ron. But he asked his parents to refer to him as Double A Aaron because that's the way it was written in the Bible. And if you research independently, you'll see that his marriage certificate actually has the Double A on it. So that was one of my main things to be like, well, of course it was he faked his death because look at that. He's not going to put his real name on his gravestone. That's bad luck for whatever reason. I don't fucking know, but
I guess in the playbook of faking your own death, you can't do that.
I would assume so. If you get caught and be like, well, I never said that I died. That's not the same fucking name. Like, that's not Froward. That's just a coinky dink. And now, considering I visited his grave twice.
Well, I was going to say there's a Graceland spokeswoman. I don't
think you can fake that was meant to be your grave.
Right. There was a spokeswoman from Graceland, a Miss Dana Yarmowich, told the Associated Press in 1997 that Presley's middle name was originally spelled with 1 A to match the name of his stillborn twin brother, Jesse Gayron, Garon.
Gayron?
Yep, Jesse Gayron Presley. Or Garon, I guess. They were from Mississippi, so I'm pretty sure it's Gayron. But anyway, Presley always wanted to spell it with 2 A's, like Coach said, just as it is in the Bible, because he was a God-fearing man, even though he shook his hips like the devil. When Presley located his birth certificate, he discovered someone had inadvertently spelled it with 2 A's and was so happy about it. He then started using the Double A as he wrote his middle name.
There's a guy I trained jiu-jitsu with named Aaron, and all I call him is Double A. I ain't called him anything other than Double A since the day I met him.
I have a student, Double A, and I have to call him Double A, or I will call him AA Ron. But anyway, so 28 years after he had passed away, Priscilla let it slip that she recently spoke to him.
Oh, really?
Now, many believe Presley is still alive because Priscilla inadvertently told a talk show audience in 2005 that she recently had a conversation with him. Priscilla let it slip that she spoke to Elvis while being interviewed by the one and only devil herself, Oprah Winfrey. She was sitting on the couch with their daughter, Lisa Marie, and she said, quote, "He too grew up poor, and that's exactly what he said the other day," end quote.
You know what's funny about that whole the devil herself, Oprah Winfrey, excuse me, is, man, I'm believing some of that shit.
Yeah. She can't run forever. There's a lot of that cult.
It's becoming apparent she's done some messed up stuff.
Yeah, that cult down there that she's a part of, that children's school, is not too.
That in particular.
Yeah, that's not looking too good.
Supporting that guy.
Yeah.
Not looking too good for her.
So, back to Priscilla, was it a Freudian slip, or did she mean what she said? You can find that Oprah show clip on YouTube. The other one, kind of, we alluded to it with the FBI story, the mob ordered a hit on him. Actress Susanna Lee starred alongside Elvis in Paradise, Hawaiian style. She heard many conspiracy theories surrounding Presley's passing, many of which indicated he had been killed. Prior to his...
Or even worse.
That's right. Prior to his untimely demise, Elvis was allegedly involved in an FBI investigation and given the code name Fountain Pen. God almighty. The case involved...
That's a pretty good secret name, though.
The case involved billions with a B of dollars and organized crime, and Elvis was allegedly an unwitting victim of the scheme. The singer was expected to provide some evidence in the case before he died. According to Lee, the FBI was tasked with making sure Elvis was safe. Some believe the circumstances surrounding his untimely death were suspect. A member of his security detail and former police sergeant, Mr. I can't say it, I'm going to go with his government name, Richard Grobb, was convinced the mob ordered a hit on Presley because they were afraid of the evidence Elvis would reveal in court. Mr. Grobb believes someone inside Elvis's inner circle let the individual responsible for his death into the house. Now, here's a weird one that I had never heard of. A wax dummy was buried in his coffin, and he's in witness protection program. In 1994, a conspiracy group called the Presley Commission claimed that a wax dummy that appeared to be sweating was buried inside Elvis's coffin. The group was convinced the king was being hunted by the mafia, and in order to escape, he chose to go into witness protection program.
Well, okay. That famous picture, if you look at it, it definitely looks like that is not Elvis from the time when Elvis died.
Right. I agree with that.
Elvis was overweight. He had seen his better days upon his death.
Too many PB and banana.
Yes. So the hypothesis about why the picture looks the way it does, if you're looking at the non-conspiracy part, if you're trying to just explain it as whatever, they're saying that the tabloids basically photoshopped for the time being, for that time. They photoshopped a picture of Elvis in his coffin because they couldn't get an actual picture of Elvis in his coffin. However, if that is a picture of Elvis in his coffin, that is not the Elvis that died. I mean, it is proof positive that that is not the same person. because it is about, I would say, 120 pounds lighter.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a hefty man when he allegedly passed away. Now, here's one again that I had never heard of. At the time of his death, Elvis was reportedly depressed. He was overweight, which we just discussed, very unhealthy, and heavily using prescription drugs, which is not a stretch of the imagination. That is factual.
It's not a secret either.
Right. His marriage to Priscilla had failed, and he was afraid to go on tour because of the way he looked. By some estimates, he weighed excess of 350. His handlers took care of him, and he was administered a drug cocktail several times throughout the night and the day. But according to some conspiracy theorists, on the day that he died, Elvis took several pills and injections all at once, thus unaliving himself.
Which is possible.
True.
I mean, the man was doing a lot of drugs. We can't deny that.
No. The last one that I have before we get into, and I'm not getting into all the way in the weeds, but I will let you chase this rabbit as far as you want to. But before we do that, the last one that I had, he's indicted due to threats on his life. The conspiracy theorist Mickey Moran believed that Elvis faked his own death because someone was threatening to kill him. Moran wrote on his website, quote, I also believe that he wants to come back to his fans while there is still time, but the powers that be are making more with him dead. I now believe that he is being forced to stay in hiding against his wishes. I want to help him do the ultimate comeback special, end quote. Now, for those of you that are rolling your eyes at this whole thing, there's a website dedicated to all of the conspiracy theories, the photos, headlines, tabloid, you name it. Whoever put this website together has done their due diligence. Now, it is circa 1994, 1995 webpage with the flashing porno lights, but it is elvisinfonet.com/conspiracy. And they have some very, very interesting photographs, I will say. They have one on there. Of course, it reset itself. I had saved it to where it was at. But they have a lot of people who claim to be or have know where Elvis is at. I was trying there. They list it by like timeline. There's a lot of weird coincidences that are out there as well. There was a picture. I was trying to get to it. There is a picture of a wheelchair in front of Graceland, and there's a car backed up, not a hearse, but a car backed up. And that is, I was trying to find it again. Of course, I'm not going to be able to find the damn thing, even though I had it saved. There is a lot of shade thrown about the view of his death. Supposedly, the coroner, Joseph H. Davis, has made some, I guess, investigative inferences into his death, which was the coroner's investigation was reopened in 1994. And it goes through the autopsy in 1977. They refer to themselves as EIN on this. So if you ever go on this website and it says EIN, that's the actual website itself. They do have that picture that you're talking about of him in the coffin, and you're correct. It's crazy. And then there is the one of the white bearded guy that supposedly, his name is John Cotner.
Is that the priest?
This one is the one that, hell. It's the one that the Gail Giorgio wrote, that her book, And then there's like a flow chart. No, this one was not the priest. That one, I can't remember his name.
There's one. There's one is like a picture of him on a 3-wheeler or something like that. Is that the one?
No, I've not seen that one.
Oh man, this guy looks identical.
Now there's a guy that's.
But I tried to find it in my research because I know I've seen it several times, and I tried to find it in my research. I couldn't come across it again. To the point where I thought the picture itself was a fucking Mandela effect because I couldn't find it. I was like, because he looked identical to what you would think an old Elvis would look like.
Now there is the latest one or the newest one, which puts him in his 80s, is he's a groundskeeper at Graceland and still resides on Graceland.
There's nobody working as a groundskeeper in their 80s.
No, I agree. There's the pool house photo that looks like Elvis is sitting on a couch through a screen door. There is also the Muhammad Ali photo.
That was the what photo?
Muhammad Ali photo where he is giving a press conference, and through between him and another guy, maybe Jesse Jackson. I think that guy on the left is Jesse Jackson. It looks like Elvis.
Oh, I've not seen that one.
Let me see if I can send that to you, but I'll try to get this one on our socials as well.
The groundskeeper, the one in the pool house photo, is pretty wild. And that wasn't too long after his supposed death.
No, it was not. I think there was a guy. There's a guy of all names, a guy named John Smith, who has a busted knee coming out of a Memphis hospital that looks like Elvis, but again, it's a grainy photo. Okay, so I did find it. So
that does not sound like a made-up name at all.
No, not at all. So this one, I finally found the picture. Show it. So it shows in 2006, January 4th, around 4:03 p.m., shows an overweight man walking outside of Graceland, and there's a car that has pulled up, and it looks like he's getting into the car. And then you go to, I'm sorry, the car is actually January 7th of 2006. So 2 days late, 3 days later. And then before that is the wheelchair out front of Christmas at Graceland. So and it says on December 30th, 2005, the Graceland cam showed a wheelchair in the driveway at Graceland. Is this the wheelchair mentioned in tabloid articles that Elvis is still alive and being wheeled around Graceland? Every time somebody shits on the tabloids, I think about Men in Black, how they go and read the tabloids.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah, that's a good point. We got to check the news. Like, what the fuck? I'm like, this is the best source of news you can get.
But anyway, they have Elvis Lives, The Truth About Elvis, Elvis is Alive, Elvis Land. There's all of these websites that are dedicated to the conspiracy. And it goes in chronological order from newest to oldest, but they also have interviews with people who swear up and down that he was alive. They have books that have been written. They go into a little bit of detail about the movies being made and that kind of stuff. So if you are interested in this topic, I highly recommend you dive head first into this rabbit hole, and it is elvisinfonet.com/conspiracy. The next one on the docket is Paul is Dead. Yes, we are referring to the one and only Paul McCartney.
Turn me on, dead man.
So 50 plus years ago, a Detroit DJ accidentally started the biggest hoax in rock and roll history, the quote, Paul is dead craze. It blew up on October 12th, 1969 when...
Hey.
What?
Supposed hoax.
Supposed hoax. I'm sorry.
Supposed hoax.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Don't make no spoilers, asshole.
It blew up on October 12th, 1969, when Russ Gibb was hosting his show on WKNR. A mysterious caller told good old Russ to put on the Beatles' White Album and spin the number nine intro from Revolution 9 backwards. When Russ tried it on the air, he heard the words, "Turn me on, dead man."
Turn me on, dead man. Turn me on, dead man.
The clues
You
kept
can't deny it, says it.
The clues kept coming too. At the end of Strawberry Fields Forever, John says, "I buried Paul." What could it all mean?
It does say. They gave an explanation to what he says, but I don't fucking believe that shit at all.
No, I don't either, and we'll get into that. It's later that I have how they asked him.
No.
But it meant that the Beatles were hiding a secret. Supposedly, allegedly, baby, Paul McCartney got killed in a car crash in 1966, and the band replaced him with an imposter. The rumor spread like a wildfire as fans searched their Beatle albums for clues. Paul is Dead remains the weirdest and most famous of all music conspiracy theories. It became a permanent part of Beatles lore, as Paul told Rolling Stone in 1974, quote, "Someone from the office rang me up and said, 'Look, Paul, you're dead.' And I said, 'Oh, I don't agree with that.'" End quote.
That's a good British accent, bro.
Thank you. After the Detroit radio broadcast, people pounced on the story. 2 days later, the Michigan Daily explained the Abbey Road cover as a funeral procession. The preacher, which is John in white. The Undertaker, Ringo in black. The corpse, poor John himself.
Paul.
I'm sorry, Paul.
Poor Paul himself. Come on, fucker.
Sorry. I was trying to burp and get it out before, but anyway, didn't work.
I saw you did like the chocolate rain thing. You like put your face away from the mic there.
I tried real hard. Hopefully it worked. Hopefully it worked.
Chocolate rain.
But anyway, now I've lost my place, you turd. All right, so
I'm sorry.
And bringing up the rear is
Fuck
George.
me for being in a good mood, you know.
George was bringing up the rear in blue as the grave digger. Now, allegedly, in the Beatles Forever by Nicholas Schaffner, Paul died on November 9th, 1966. He drove away from Abbey Road late that night before a, quote, stupid, bloody Tuesday, then blew his brains out in a car. He was officially pronounced dead, OPD, that comes back, on Wednesday morning at 5 o'clock, which is why George points to that line on the Sgt. Pepper sleeve, while Paul wears OPD patch. But the other Beatles decided to hush up the news. So Wednesday morning papers didn't come. Somehow they kept Paul's death a secret, replaced him with a lookalike, then dropped sly hints about the cover-up scam. If you buy into this, whoever they got to fill in for Paul wrote Hey Jude and Blackbird, which means he probably should have been.
Or they just gave him credit.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily mean he did it. They just gave him credit because they wanted people to think Paul was still writing music.
Now, fans began whispering about all the clues on the just-released Abbey Road album. If you look at the cover even more in depth, and this is, man, you got to wrap that tinfoil a little bit tighter. Paul is barefoot and out of step with the others, holding a cigarette in his right hand. Everyone knows that Paul was a lefty. The Volkswagen with the 28IF license plate would have been how Paul would have been if he were still alive. No.
Well, let me call some bullshit on their explanation of his appearance on that album cover. they're going to state that, oh, he was barefooted simply because his feet got hot, so he kicked his shoes off. I'm sorry. I don't know how asphalt works in England, but I can assure you 1,000%, if your feet are hot with your shoes on, kicking them off and walking barefoot on asphalt is not going to fix your fucking problem.
No, sir, it will not.
It will never, never, ever, ever.
Now, there was no claim or theory not taken seriously. Fans eagerly believed walrus, in quotes, is Greek for corpse. It's not. It's Scandinavian. Or that goo 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 job, or I'm sorry, goo 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 jube. I practiced that like 100 times, making sure that I even underlined it so I wouldn't say job and it didn't matter. The goo 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 jube.
That was amazing.
It's what Humpty Dumpty says in James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake before his fatal fall off the wall. I Am the Walrus ends with a live BBC broadcast of a fatal scene from Shakespeare's King Lear with Oswald groaning, "Oh, untimely death." And in Glass Onion, John sings, "Here's another clue for you all. The walrus was Paul."
Yeah, but I've heard that particular quote-unquote hint is because they got word of the Paul is dead theory, so they're playing into it by tricking you into thinking the walrus was Paul, when in reality, the walrus was John on the cover.
Yes, yeah.
But who knows now? Who knows now?
When the rumor blew up, Paul was neither, according to allegedly, if you buy into the other camp, Paul was neither dead nor a walrus. He was actually on his farm with Linda, Heather, and their 6-week-old daughter, Mary, known to the world as the infant cradled in his leather jacket in Linda's most famous photo. With a newborn baby to care for, he was in no mood to indulge the media frenzy, as he told Rolling Stones, quote, "They said, look, what are you going to do about it? It's a big thing breaking in America. You're dead." And so I said, leave it. Just let them say it. It'll probably be the best publicity we've ever had, and I won't have to do a thing except stay alive. So I managed to stay alive through it, end quote. Now, John called into the same Detroit radio station on October 26th, fumed, "It's the most stupid rumor I've ever heard. It sounds like the same the same guy who blew up my Christ remark." John denied any coded messages. Quote, "I don't know what Beatles records sound like backwards. I never play them backwards," end quote. Or that he was the preacher at a funeral. Quote, "They said I was wearing a white religious suit. I mean, did Humphrey Bogart wear a white religious suit? All I've got is a nice Humphrey Bogart suit," end quote. John's peak was understandable. He was releasing his own solo single, Cold Turkey, the record where he finally ditched the Lennon-McCarthy credit, and his wedding album with the one and only Yoko Ono, the real reason the Beatles broke up. The last thing John wanted to talk about was Paul's bare feet. I didn't know this, but attorney F. Lee Bailey hosted a TV investigation cross-examining witnesses like Alan Klein and Peter Asher. Beatles scholar Andrew J. Reeve, in his wonderful history of the phenomenon, Turn Me On, Dead Man, gives transcripts of the TV trial. When Klein was asked why John said, quote, "I buried Paul," end quote, he claimed on that particular take, his guitar buried Paul's sound. The record racks got flooded with quickie exploitations like Jose Felencio's So Long Paul, under the name Warbly Finster, Brother Paul by Billy Shears and the All-Americans, the best of these tunes, We're All Paul Bearers by Zacharias and the Tree People, It was actually a decent Buffalo Springfield imitation with the wailing, quote, "See the patch insuation, son of a bitch." See the patch insinuation, OPD on his sleeve, wearing black sweet carnation while bringing mystery. Something about the Beatles had always inspired death rumors, even in the early days, as Mark Lewison reports in Tune In. When original bassist Stu Sutcliffe quit in 1961, Merce Beat printed a letter from a fan asking if it was true that this member of the Beatles had been killed in a car crash. But this one was different. The novelist Richard Price, in a 1984 memoir for Rolling Stone, recalls listening to a 1969 college radio show with fans sharing their off-the-wall theories. Here Comes the Sun, played backwards at 78 RPM, says, "Woe is Paul." He calls the DJ just for the kick of hearing his voice on the radio, quote, "You know what 84% of all coffins in England are made of? It might even be 87% Norwegian wood." I don't know the deal there, but okay.
Well, Norwegian Wood was a Beatles song.
I'm sorry. Again,
I don't know if you know that.
I didn't. So there you go. There's my ignorance.
Well, you're not a Beatles fan, bruh?
I'm not that big of a Beatles fan, no.
Oh my God, you don't know Norwegian Wood?
You've
never heard Norwegian Wood?
I probably have, but just didn't know the name of it.
I've never heard it either. I just know that it's a song.
Ass. At first, the Fab's long-suffering press officer, Derek Taylor, brushed off the latest rumors. Quote, "They're always trying to start one of those. It happened before. The calls will stop coming in a few days." But this time, the calls didn't stop. Richard DeLillo's book, The Longest Cocktail Party, gives an inside account of the chaos that hit Apple. With Paul off the grid in Scotland, Taylor kept denying the gossip with all his usual charm. Quote, "The Paul McCartney who wrote 'And I Love Her' still loves you and is still alive and has a lot to write. There are 1,000 songs unwritten and much to do." But in the Apple office, he added, "We'll start our own rumor that the public is dead from the neck up and they've been using a stand-in facsimile of a brain for the past 3.5 years. Life magazine sent reporters out to stalk McCartney on his farm. After throwing a bucket of water on them, Paul agreed to do an interview and photos just to make this mess go away. In the November 9th cover story, "Paul McCartney is still with us," he casually added, "The Beatles thing is over, but nobody noticed. That's how over the top the whole hysteria was." Paul could drop a bombshell like this and people missed it. It's because people were too busy scrutinizing his chin or his jaw for proof that he was not the real Paul McCartney. As he told Mojo in 2009, quote, "I think the worst thing that happened was that I could see people sort of looking at me more closely. Were his ears always like that?" End quote.
Well, there are some fairly interesting comparisons of his face from the 1960s to now, or to the 1980s, or to the 90s, whatever, that really don't match up, to be honest with you.
No, the ears thing is like fingerprints too. It's hard to change an ear.
Yeah, it's hard to change your ears from detached to attached, and vice versa.
Vice versa? Look at you using that.
As the kids would say.
So by 1970, it became a ritual of fan culture to check out the clues for yourself. Countless pallbearers over the years have held up a butter knife to the back cover of Abbey Road so we could see the reflection of a human skull. It's there to the right of the S. Or put on side 2 of the White Album, drop the needle on the vinyl right after I'm So Tired, and spin it backwards to hear the word, "Paul is dead, man. Miss him, miss him." Held the cover of his first solo album was a bowl of cherries, as in, quote, "Life is just..." But the bowl was empty, which could only mean Paul was starting the world's first posthumous solo career. As we all now know, John was saying cranberry sauce, supposedly, allegedly, instead of "I buried Paul." And the OPD patch said, according to them, it said OPP, and it's not, you know me, it was the Ontario Provincial Police. But that didn't spoil anyone's fun. As Schaffner wrote, it's, quote, a genuine folktale of the mass communications era, end quote. The story outlived Russ Gibb, who died in April of 2019. It also outlasted the band. As it turns out, something major really happened to the Beatles on November 9th, 1966, and it was the day that John met Yoko. Fortunately, Paul is still around to celebrate. Or is he? He even released a solo album called Paul is Alive. Now, there are several...
It was called Paul is Live.
I'm sorry, Paul is Live. You're right.
Not Alive.
You're right.
It was Paul is
I
Live.
misspoke, sir. I do
Come
apologize.
On, bro.
So you've got the whole White Album. You've got... The thing that I heard was that John, George, and Ringo all sat down and said they had to have a body double. But they felt guilty for, I guess, cashing in on it. And so that's why they started leaving clues in the albums and the songs. There were 2 stories about car crashes. And one of them came from Beatles Monthly Book, which was the Beatles' official fan magazine. In February of 1967, it says stories about the Beatles are always flying around. The magazine briskly noted a rumor swept London that Paul had been killed in a car crash on the M1. But of course, there was absolutely no truth in it at all. A seed of truth did exist within this rumor, however. Paul had crashed his moped in December of 1965, resulting in a chipped tooth. And in January of 1967, someone driving Paul's car did crash it on the M1 motorway. Paul appeared in public looking very much alive. If you buy into that, it's really him. And the Beatles released Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band in May of 1967. However, a college student in Michigan revived the rumor with assurance in 1969. On October the 12th is when that infamous call came in. And he was talking about playing the song backwards. And then we get into the actual Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. This album cover for that album allegedly shows a plethora of clues confirming that McCartney is dead. According to the Paul is dead theory, Paul stormed out of the recording session on November the 9th, 1966, upset with the band. He got into his car, drove into the night, and at some point he got into a car accident that cut his head off. But this it goes back to putting the other band members in a bind because they had released albums Rubber Soul and Revolver to critical acclaim. They had played to 55,000 fans at Shea Stadium, and they were skyrocketing, and they were afraid that his death would cause all of that to come crashing down. They hired the lookalike named William Campbell, also known as Billy Shears. And that is a whole, if you type in William Campbell, Billy Shears, Paul McCartney into YouTube, there is a ton of videos out there. Now, Campbell, they said, not only looked like him, but sounded like him when he sang. I was trying to get to the Sgt. Pepper's. There it is. Okay. So the Sgt. Pepper's album cover is supposedly one of the biggest clues with people that believe in this theory that the image of the whole cadre of the band's heroes is not just a gathering, but a funeral. They point to the freshly dug earth in the foreground, the younger Beatles all dressed in black, and a patch of yellow flowers prominently displayed in the front. Could it be a nod to the left-handed bassist? John, dressed in white, represented the priest. Star in black portrayed an undertaker. And George was wearing denim, suggesting the gravedigger. And Paul, out of step with the others, not wearing shoes, eyes closed, was clearly meant to represent his own death. This list goes on and on and on and on and on. And the entire concept of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the introduction of an alter ego, Billy Shears, seemed to scream that he did really die. So, I mean, it just, if you can think of it, it's out there. You know, you got them breaking up. You got John singing. Where's it at? And
this is the type of case. I mean, we haven't covered nearly half of the quote unquote clues. This is the case if you want to really lose yourself on YouTube or lose yourself in podcasts or whatever. This is the case to do it.
It is, because you will lose months off your last.
There's so many things that we didn't even cover that are quote unquote proof positive.
Yeah, and the last one I wanted to touch on was in John's 1971 Imagine album. He skewers, I guess crucifies, I was a little harsh, but Paul with a song called How Do You Sleep? And in that he sings, quote, "Those freaks were right when they said you was dead. The one mistake you made was in your head." It's all bloody stupid, John said in an interview on November 7th, 1969. And then they interviewed Paul, and he said, quote, "I was walking barefoot because it was a hot day. The Volkswagen just happened to be parked there. But like Coach said, you're not going to take your shoes off if you're hot."
You're not going to do that in fucking Georgia.
No.
I promise you that shit. Oh, my feet are hot. I'm going to kick my shoes off. Yeah, you're going to have blisters, brother.
You're right about that.
But I don't know how it works in England, but I'm just saying.
So we have a lot of homework, if you want to do the homework, for both of these cases. We have the website that I mentioned for Elvis, and we have all of the YouTubes and all you got to do is really type in, is Paul McCartney really alive or is Paul McCartney dead? You'll get more than you want. There's some YouTube-only documentaries out there where somebody tries to forensically measure the skull in pictures, and man, it gets way in the weeds. So, but anyway, that, ladies and gentlemen, is our tiptoe into the conspiracy, which we will follow up with another episode on the conspiracy. You heard it here first, Cody. We are doing the Olympia/Titanic. I had a recommendation and I can't remember what it was. Do you have one, sir?
No. We're skipping our theories, man.
No. Well, all right. So here's the thing. I'm 50-50 on both of them. I think there's a lot of evidence out there, but I think the Paul is dead is more like we've always stated. I think Elvis could have faked his own death with the help of one person. Or two people tops. But for the Beatles to fake Paul's death and then have the Huevos to drop hints on album covers and songs, I think is over the top.
Well, like I alluded to earlier, I believe one's more plausible than the other. I think that Elvis faking his death is way more plausible than Paul McCartney dying and then covering it up. Because literally, Elvis, all he had to do was stop talking to anyone. It could have been, hey, he died, man, that was terrible, and then no one ever see him again. But for Paul McCartney to literally die and then everyone involved covered up completely seems a little implausible to me, especially the fact that you're going to say John, George, and Ringo are going to drop hints in their album covers, their music, their interviews, blah, 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 blah. If a record company, being as powerful as they should be, or I mean, not should be, but as powerful as we think they could be, are in charge of doing that, they're not going to let them drop hints. They're not going to let the album cover look like Paul McCartney's funeral. That's going to be ridiculous.
That's my biggest. Well, but it goes back into that thing where supposedly they have to tell you inadvertently of their plan, the cabal, this world cabal.
Yeah. Well, and then but however, there was this documentary on Netflix that was called The Last Testament of George Harrison.
Yes. Now that one is
okay, but I'm going to say this: the way the documentary starts, it starts on the album Revolver, which is before Paul McCartney supposedly died. And it was George giving all these hints about this on the album cover Revolver. We did this because this and this and this is hint about Paul McCartney dying. It was giving you all these obvious hints about the fact this documentary is bullshit. However, no. However, from my research before that documentary and after, it's the fact that they called the fake Paul Fall. Faul. Fall. And in that Netflix documentary, The Last Testament of George Harrison, showed a clip of him in an interview pretty close to when he died. And he very, very clearly says fall. Like, very clearly says fall. And that right there gives me the idea that, okay, I don't know, maybe. But I would say it's extremely difficult. To fake your death is very difficult. But to actually die and convince the world that you didn't is damn near impossible. And let's look at Paul McCartney's discography after the Beatles broke up. I mean, it's pretty clear. I'm sorry, unfortunately, John died. But it's fairly clear that Paul has had the most successful career since the Beatles broke up.
That is true.
Even if John hadn't have died, I think that would still be true. Is Paul had the biggest career since then.
I agree. 100%.
Hard to just teach a random guy that looked like Paul to A, play the guitar left-handed, and B, become one of the best songwriters of our time. It's hard to do that.
And continue on after the alleged Beatles break up. So, yeah, it's odd, but mine's not really it's not a good recommendation, but I will say the first 3 Jurassic Parks are now on Amazon Prime for free if you have Amazon Prime. There was an actual TV show or not TV show. It was I know what it was. The Finding Bigfoot, season 3. I finally found it. So either they're the luckiest sons of bitches on the planet when it comes to Bigfoot, or they're the dumbest sons of bitches on the planet when it comes to Bigfoot. They have all this cutting edge technology. And I watched like the first half of season 3. there were so many times that they could have easily just used their thermal imaging or their FLIR camera or whatever they had on them to find out what the hell was making the noise, and they didn't. Okay? They did find a lot of circumstantial evidence that I will say shines a whole new light on how Sasquatch behaves. So if you have not watched season 3 of Finding Bigfoot, that is the Dr. Mayer and Russ, and I think it's Finding Bigfoot. Hell, I can't remember. But anyway, it's the one that there's 4 of them. The guy stays behind, and he's like at the command center. I'm trying to make sure before I misspeak. No, it is not Finding Bigfoot. Shit. I don't know what it's called then, damn it. What is the other one?
Expedition Bigfoot.
Expedition Bigfoot. That's the one. That's it.
There we go.
There we go. Coach coming through in the pinch. Expedition Bigfoot is the one I'm referring to, not Finding Bigfoot. So Expedition Bigfoot season 3. So I've confused everyone, and there we go. All right. So what are you recommending there, Slappy?
I'm going to recommend something, a Richard Hartline, Mr. Richard Hartline, one of our super fans, texted me and said, I found this on HBO Max. Somehow I've never seen it. It is called The Yeti Massacre. It's about the explanation of the Dyatlov Pass incident as being a Yeti attack. Huh. The reason it's on HBO Max is because HBO Max purchased Discovery Plus. So all the Discovery Plus content is on HBO Max now.
I saw that on the Max app now. So yeah, it's weird. It's weird, man. It's weird.
No, it's a very interesting interpretation of what happened, because though they don't know exactly what happened, without a doubt, the last photo on their camera roll shows an unidentified creature, human or not. It is there.
That is true, and I think I saw that when it first came out, and I think they interviewed those 2 old KGB guys. I'm not 100%.
Yes, they do.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the Elvis and Paul McCartney conspiracies. Coach, you got anything else?
You know I don't.
Deuces.